Welcome to the Higher Ed Geek Podcast, where we explore the impact of EdTech on the student experience with engaging, fun, and relevant conversations that honor the wide range of work happening all across the higher ed ecosystem. I'm your host, Dustin Ramsdell. I've been working in and around higher ed for the past decade, focused on student support and digital experience. Join me every week for discussions with some of the best minds in education technology who'll be bringing you their perspectives on how digital transformation is reshaping the way we recruit, engage, and graduate learners. You'll hear firsthand accounts of how institutional leaders are developing their strategy, as well as get deeper on the stories of how these EdTech tools are being built to foster better student outcomes. With that, let's get to today's episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Higher Ed Geek Podcast, episode number 300 with Sophie Nguyen, Senior Policy Manager at New America. So yes, we have reached this amazing milestone. Thank you so much to everyone who has supported and listened to the show and shared it out, left reviews, been guests, and the wonderful producers and support of the Enrollify podcast network. Make sure you check out the bonus episode that I'm releasing on the feed as well to kind of go a little bit further into this, but it's incredible after over 7 years, we've reached 300 episodes. It's been an amazing ride, and we are going to keep the fun times rolling here. So really appreciate Sophie coming on to dig into the recent findings from their new 2025 Varying Degrees Research Report, looking at perceptions of higher education right now. It's just a really great resource in this kind of turbulent moment to affirm some of the things institutions need to focus on and challenge some of the assumptions that have become part of the zeitgeist. So I just really appreciate this kind of data and research to create kind of the common ground for conversations and how leaders can build their strategy versus relying on anecdotal assumptions or just kind of doing guesswork and everything. So please do enjoy this wonderful episode number 300 with Sophie Nguyen. Very excited for our conversation today to dig in with a newly released report, Varying Degrees 2025 report from New America. And I don't want to waste any time here before we get into it, but Sophie, if you want to briefly kind of kick us off just by doing as we always do, introducing yourself, your background, explain New America and what it does, and your role there.
So my name is Sophie Nguyen. I'm the Senior Policy Manager with the Higher Ed team at New America. So New America, for those that haven't heard of us, is a think tank based in Washington, D.C. We work on a variety of issues from education to workforce to family and social policy. The Higher Ed team where I belong is part of the education team at New America. We conduct research, we write and advocate policy that's related to higher ed access, affordability and equity, and higher ed accountability, and try to find solutions that are student-centered and focus most of our work on federal policy for federal policies in student financial aid, including student loans, consumer protections, and other support for underserved students. My work with New America, I actually have been at New America for almost 8 years now. My main portfolio include public opinion and student success, and also do advocacy, funding to support colleges, especially colleges that serve a significant number of low-income students and other underserved students. So that's just in a nutshell what New America is and what my work focuses on.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. And I think, I've known of New America for a while and hoped to have someone on the show at some point. Certainly now is a great time with this new report. And we'll start from the beginning, though, if you can just kind of introduce the report, this Varying Degrees 2025, and how it came together.
So it's a survey of the general public, American adults. We asked them a variety of questions that related to different issues in higher ed, mostly focused on questions around value, funding for higher ed, and accountability. This is actually the 9th year that we have conducted the surveys. The first survey started in 2017. And throughout the years, we have collected a resource of data, a resource of public opinion, like to show how public opinion has changed over time. And I would say in the past 9 years, there has been a lot of things happen, especially with higher education. We can walk down the Merrill Lane right now, but yeah, like not to mention, like in the first 6 years of this month, a lot more things happen than usual with higher education as well. So it has been an honor to be actually involved in this work and to actually be able to monitor, to actually review how public opinion about higher education is during this like very, I would say, challenging time, but also a lot of the things happen in with higher education today is considered unprecedented. So every year we started to think about the survey, to revise the questionnaires in the fall, and we send out the surveys in the field in like the spring, usually February or March, and release a survey in the summer. It's actually was very challenging to really decide on a topic that we want to focus on for like this year, but we talked to our team and we decide that we will go back to the issues of like to the central debate about higher educations as to like what the roles of higher education is and what the people expect it to be. We hear that like that debate has taken central stage, especially in the political stage currently. Like it's not new, nothing is being debated is new, especially in terms of like we hear like people on the right side saying like higher ed is too liberal, that like President Trump saying that higher ed is like teaching colleges that's teaching students un-American values. Like none of that is new. It's not like breaking news for this year, but I think with a lot of like the challenges, the scrutiny into the system, like those debate has been like it's taking more of like a central focus, like receive a lot of spotlight lately, and that's why we decided to go back to okay, then if that is like if the thing about what higher ed actually is being that contentious in the political stage, why not ask Americans what they actually think about like what higher education means to them, what they expect higher like what they consider high quality higher education, and what they expect like student outcome to be. So that's just like those are the new questions we added to this surveys in 2025.
It is so important is to kind of like cut through like a lot of the noise of the moment, because like some of that is just some bluster that's going out, just what we're kind of hearing from folks over that span of time. Like these are just the core questions of how people are sort of have always been kind of scrutinizing and holding higher education to a standard, a valuable investment and all that being kind of in the eye of the beholder, but at least just kind of getting a gauge and seeing how that's changed over time. This was really interesting to me, I think, from looking at some of the kind of higher level kind of summaries of the insights from this, is that it really does both confirm and challenge, I think, what a lot of people would sort of, guess, or sort of the prevailing assumptions, I think, about higher ed's, perception at this moment. So what was your impression, seeing this? Because I think it was kind of just a really interesting mixed bag of sort of the confirming and challenging some of the assumptions that I think I and others would have about how people perceive higher ed.
Sometimes when you ask new questions, you never know how it's gonna like how the response is gonna be. Like you will sort of have some expectations, but you at the end you never know. And I think some of the like when we ask questions about like how people feel about like different missions, like do people believe that higher ed should like do certain things like teach like like for example like conduct research or like teach students become like teach students like not just focus on like, skill training but also like other like soft skill like communications or writing. Like when we ask the question, like I believe like those would like a lot of people would agree to those items, but what I didn't expect is to see how strongly it is and how actually like we see a lot of alignment between Democrat and Republicans on like some of the on like a lot of the questions that we ask. There will be differences in like the level to which they respond. Like more Democrat like say it's very important compared to Republicans say that it's very important to like equip students with like critical thinking skill or like writing skill, for example. Overall, like in the aggregate of like the total number of people that say those are important things that colleges should prepare students with, we see a very strong number from both sides, and that's just an important takeaway to have, because like with the way the current media is right now, the political stage that we are in right now, it seems that there's not a lot of agreement. There seems there's no common ground between the two parties. Like, where do people start the conversations? How do we find a bipartisan solutions to a lot of the policy issue we're facing with right now? But when we drill down to like a lot of these questions, actually, day-to-day Americans, like, they agree on a lot more things than we would have expected. The responses confirm a lot of what we expected before. Like, yeah, people are not happy with how education is right now. I think like only 40% say that they think it's fine the way it is. Like, just a bit more than half think that it has positive impact on the way things are going in the country. But at the same time, the responses still show that like more than 70% of Americans still think that it's worth the return on investment, and that like they still believe that colleges still have a purpose, have a functions. They don't like when they say they're not happy with college, or that like we also see in other survey data that confidence for higher education is low right now. It doesn't mean that people don't want to send their children to college anymore. Like they still see a role of college, not just for their children and family, but also for society. Like what we see with the surveys this year, that we is that like the support and the belief for that is still very strong. And it's like we see alignment across like different demographic group as well. It's the narrative that has been lost about higher education. Like we talk about things that people are not happy with, and it's true, like there's a lot of problem with higher educations right now. Like, yeah, people are not happy with the affordability issues, student debt is high. People are worried about the return of it, like whether it is like whether college is worth it is on the top of mind for like everyone who's like enroll in college or are thinking of enrolling in college right now. But at the end of the day, there is a lot of benefit, a lot of good things about higher education, and that narrative has been just lost in the media. And I don't think even higher education themselves, even for colleges and universities, they have been communicating that well. So like our surveys findings were able to confirm like those some of that, and was able like I really think that when people see the survey respond, I think we can use some of this as like context setting for like how we should create a better narrative, a better messaging about higher education.
All right, let's take a quick break for a word from our sponsor. Forsyth Technical Community College was juggling siloed systems, fragmented data pipelines, and manual workflows across marketing, admissions, and CRM operations. Then they deployed Bolt Agents, Element 451's AI workforce platform. The result? These agents handled over 80% of student inquiries independently, saving 183,060 human minutes, and cutting call volumes by 14% within just 1 week of rollout. Curious what your AI teammates could look like? Try an agent today at element451.com/agents. Yeah, and you're teeing up my next question perfectly about how leaders can use the data in this report and everything. But yeah, I mean, I think it is that idea of like seeing the agreement on, cost being a concern, but like a majority believing that federal investment, should increase and help address that and, things like that. So I think the devil's in the details of like, how you end up doing that. Is that changing stuff with student loans through the federal government? Is that changing stuff with Pell Grants, which we already have seen some adjustment there? Is it just giving the institutions more funding and research to use, as they see fit or something, like it could be a little of all of it or just one thing or another or whatever, so like, yeah, it's always these things that I think just ground us in conversation about these issues and just hopefully help to kind of put some tailwinds behind, moving towards actual policy solutions. I will put it back to you, though. You're already kind of starting to riff on it. How you hope institutional leaders are using this report to help inform their strategy.
Like you said, there will need to be a lot of action. There will need to be changes with higher educations. Like the cost of college, like the concern for cost affordability is like sort of as a breaking point, but I would say it has been at a breaking point for years. It's not like we didn't start to complain about the cost now, but like we just haven't seen a very viable and very sustainable, I would say like substantial change that like let people to feel that that college is just very affordable. Now that's just like I speak of it from like the federal policy perspective. Like we have policy solutions, but for policy proposal, but that is but we haven't yet seen that happening. There need to be policy change and action taken, like not just at the federal level, but also at the state level and that at the institutions level to actually like directly target these issues that student and family have concern with, like cost, curriculum, like whether the curriculum is teaching what like student need to prepare for them for the workforce. There's issues about like access, about selectivity of colleges as well, like whether college like it's like just like casting themselves as elite and make it like seem like distant and not accessible for like a lot of students, especially like low income student or like first gen students or student of colors or the underserved students. So like those are the issues that require like federal, state, and also institutional actions. But at the same time, I think one of the area that colleges, institutional leader need to be able to solve now is I think is the messaging and the narrative about higher education. Like none of these criticism against higher education is new. Like I just don't think colleges has or like the higher education side has have a effective or like a have been able to provide a unifying narrative about like to defend themselves. And if anything, like we see like that the thing that mentions that often mentioned being mentioned in the media are like the very elite institution like the Harvard, the Columbia of the space. That increasingly like those media mentions like strengthen the image that higher is actually very elite, like very selective. That is not for the normal, the average Americans, and that is like very like we see that it's just very damaging right now. And in the midst of the I call it attack or scrutiny from the Trump administration into higher education and into those elite colleges, into all those like they not until recently, like when they feel like their research funding is being taken away or like at risk of being taken away, or that they need to revise their missions. Colleges, especially like big and small, start to come out and like provide like talk about what they exactly do. I mean, I was like, why didn't they do that before? Like we have like this keeps happening for a long time, and in the past year, I don't feel like colleges have been doing a good job of connecting themselves to the public, not only student and family, but maybe to the public. I hope they use these uh, findings. There's a lot of good findings that can be beneficial to their messaging, and I hope they be able to use these findings and to craft a strong and effective message that they can use to talk about it, and not just for any one university, but if like the whole sector can come together and to be able to set up a unifying messaging that can defend themselves, defend their purpose, defend their roles for like not just the students, not just what they can do to the student, but also like how they have been helping their community, how they have been contributing to society and the economy, and for those messages to become more taking more the central stage on like in the media rather than like hearing a lot of like negative noise about higher educations right now.
Yeah, that was exactly my thinking is like trying to, at the very least, be a little bit more defensive, but then starting to get to a point of like playing offense and like trying to drive the things that you know are going to solve these sort of stubborn issues, that have been around for a long time. And I think it's been this thing where it's like, oh, maybe, somebody else is going to solve this or figure something else out or whatever. But if it's like, well, our livelihood is at stake here as an institution, we need to maybe, drive forward a solution that is going to be effective, for addressing these things. So I think it is that moment of, this sort of call to action and then try to advocate on the state level and the federal level. And, I think, there's been these sort of fits and starts and kind of smaller efforts, but I think certainly you're also right that I think these elite institutions that sort of suck all the air out of the room, and on one hand it's like, okay, you want that to sort of maybe be kind of tampered down a little bit, but then maybe if it's like, okay, these institutions know that they kind of have this outsized role if they are trying to kind of rally people together and respond to this sort of call to action. It's like, okay, you can have a place there, but otherwise it's almost like you do need to kind of like take a step back and let these other institutions that actually serve a lot more learners and make really great impacts in their communities and all those sort of things, like give them this opportunity and to kind of step up and show their worth, so show their value. And we'll wrap up here now with kind of our new final question and segment. It is a sponsored question in partnership with our friend Brian Leduc, founder of Learning Design, a consulting practice and newsletter focused on helping higher institutions design more student-centered systems and strategies. We'll have a way to subscribe to his newsletter at the link in our episode description. So the question that we are asking you, Sophie, to briefly weigh in on: what advice would you give to someone driving change in education?
College was a transformative experience for me, and I want to work in higher ed to really help more people to have that same transformative experience so they can change their life. I really think college can be a magical place when a lot of good thing can happen, and it starts with the students. And so that's why I think you need to know what your student looking for, where your student are, what the difficulty that they dealing with, the challenges that they dealing with in their day-to-day life, not just in the classroom, but also their day-to-day life, and to be able to meet students where they are and provide support that the student need to be able to continue their study and get across the finish line. The connection and the relationship that college build with students is tremendously valuable and can create a immeasurable impact on the student life, and not just one student, on many student life. And that's where you will start to see in the foreign policy space, when a new policy, like it takes time for policy to happen, even though when it happens, it will have like it can affect a lot of people. But I think when college dealing with students on a day-to-day basis, they have the power to actually make change to the student life. And part of my job in the student success work is to be able to advocate for more federal funding, to give colleges the capacity and the resources they need to be able to provide that support for students right away, and to be able to, I think that for like anyone to want to make change in educations, you need to know what your students are dealing with to be able to drive the change that will be the most impactful. Because student, at the end of the day, student will be your key constituent. You will need to listen to them. In order to drive the change that you want, you need to be involved in the process as well.
Good wisdom and always a good reminder. And a lot of what we're talking about is the sort of abstract sort of national sentiments and, sort of responses to these surveys and everything. It's but at the end of the day, and certainly at the institutional level, as you're making change, being really plugged into your students and, doing kind of listening tours or, office hours and those sort of things, keeping that sort of, continuous loop of feedback and just making sure that you keep that clarity of focus, on students ultimately of okay, we're, doing this or that, the person that, we're serving and is going to get this message and whatever else is ultimately going to be, the students. We want to make sure that it resonates with them and that we're responsive to them and all those things. And I think that's always just a great North Star as you are driving change in education, operating or thinking about okay, what is this major policy that we're doing? It's if we're, doing this, it is ultimately going to be this individual student that is interfacing with it. And we want to make sure that it is meeting their needs. Just with what you're doing here, with reports like this, that highly encourage folks to go check it out, go download it and just take time to kind of read through everything. Because I think that idea of, your organization doing this work, over the past several years now, even trying to help people get that clarity, kind of alleviate as much ambiguity as possible to help guide their strategy forward as an institution, certainly during a turbulent time like this is so important. So I appreciate you, your team, all that you're doing, and for you taking time out and sharing all you did for this episode. Of ways to connect with you in the report and New America in the episode description. But yeah, just thank you so much again for joining me for this episode.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Higher Ed Geek podcast. This show is a proud member of the Enrollify Network, home to Higher Ed's largest collection of podcasts. Enrollify is where higher ed goes to grow. So be sure to check out our other podcasts, webinars, video clips, blogs, and more. Visit Enrollify.org and subscribe for all the latest details and content drops directly to your inbox. Enrollify is brought to you by Element 451, the digital workforce platform for higher ed. Learn more at element451.com.